Thank you, Chair, and thank you to everyone for being here to testify. I just want to start off by saying that I think it's important for all of us to recognize that what we're seeing across Canada and Indigenous communities is not a call for remembrance or commemoration. It's a call to acknowledge genocide and to acknowledge that there are crime scenes across our Canada, that there are graves of children across our country, of Indigenous children. So I just want to acknowledge that as we start, or as I start my questioning. So my first question is, how many nations is the department currently working with to identify possible burial sites?
Thank you for the question. And if I could just pick up quickly on the first point that you made, I think some of the most heart-wrenching conversations I've had in the last week are from Indigenous people who are frustrated at the reaction of Canadians from the perspective they said 6 years ago, this issue was laid bare in black and white for every Canadian to read. Why is it a surprise now? And I would just pick up on the comment that you made there. So we are working with every community that wishes to engage on this issue. We have made communication to every single community in the country. It's on our website. We'll be sending out an email blast to everybody, and we are prepared to work with anyone on this front. It is their choice. These are very difficult conversations, as you can imagine, and many communities have in their priorities things that are not related to these issues at this moment in time, and we will respect the timeframes in which they want to raise them and whether or not they want to raise them, but we are open to working with everyone. And again, there are a number of communities where we're having specific conversations, but we're open to working with absolutely everyone.
So Justice Sinclair has told the world that when he started this process, when he was part of that committee, they didn't expect the amount of stories that they received of people talking about, survivors talking about children killed, children who died, children who never returned. They weren't sure what happened to them, indicating very clearly that there was something serious happening here that we should be looking into. And of course, that wasn't studied the way that it should have been. I'm just wondering if you could tell us about how many requests the department has received, how many have been dismissed, and how many have been followed up with, and if the stories of survivors is enough for an investigation.
I think, and I'll ask my colleague Martin Riel to speak to some of the specifics and the requests that we've had. I'm not aware that we have denied any requests from different groups that might have come forward to us. Obviously, we were waiting for the money. We expect many requests to come in now that it's out there. The groups that we work with have known that this money is coming. They were waiting for the details of it. It's now out there. And you're quite right, obviously, that these stories have been told many times. And I think one of the reasons that people had stopped talking about them is that parents had gone and asked school administrators. Parents had gone and talked to police forces throughout history. People had asked all sorts of government agents what had happened to their children. They were ignored time and time and time again. Some instances they were lied to. Some instances documents were withheld that should have been given to them. And so people got to the point where they didn't talk about it publicly. And as you point out, it came out in significant volume during the hearings process. But perhaps my colleague, Mr. Rier, could speak to the engagements we have where people have sought resources to this point.
Thank you, Deputy. Thank you for the question. So indeed, we have not denied any request for funding. We are actually keeping track of the requests that we have received in the last few days in particular, and we'll follow up with the First Nations, in addition, of course, to making available the information to present requests in the future. The second part of the question was with respect to what survivors had to say and whether that is sufficient to launch the work. And obviously, the information that survivors recall and have shared is critical as a starting point for that type of work. Additional work will be required, historical research, archaeological research, obviously, in order to locate potential burial grounds. And
thank you.
that
I'm
is
sorry to interrupt, but I just have a few seconds left. My last question is just that, are there support systems that are going to be available for communities should a site be identified? We need to see trauma-informed care given on site for elders, knowledge keepers, community members, survivors, and their families. And I'm just wondering if those resources are also part of this package.
Briefly.
If I could turn to my colleague Valerie Gideon. Yeah.
So I can speak to that. So in budget 2021, we were able to obtain renewal of the Indian Residential School Health Support Program to continue to extend those mental health and cultural supports to communities across the country until 2024. There are additional mental health resources also that were included. So the total is close to 600 million over 3 years. And that's in addition to the other base programming that we have in the department, such as non-insured health benefits.